What's going on, guys? Matt here from Become Elite, and recently I obtained my nutrition coach certification from the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and to celebrate, I thought I would debunk 4 nutrition myths that I still believe majority of footballers probably still believe to be true. So as you guys probably know, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to this topic. I love nutrition. I love really delving into scientific studies and meta-analysis, and I think it's really important for you guys to do your own research as well. So any study that I mention, any topic that I go into, or any source that I use, it will all be linked in the description for you to do your own research and double check any of the sources that I've listed. And one thing that you guys should really know about nutrition is that it's a relatively new topic. New studies, new information is constantly coming out, so you have to stay open-minded and ready to change your opinion on something if the data supports it. So everything I'm saying in this video is just based off the best science that we have available today. And last thing before we get in the video, I'm not a registered dietitian, I'm just a certified nutrition coach. So if you guys are gonna make any drastic changes to your diet or to your nutrition plan, go see a RD, go see a registered dietitian, and have them help you create a diet plan best for you. All right, now let's get into the myths. The first myth that I want to debunk, and it's probably one of the most widespread myths out there, but it's this idea that you can spot reduce fat through specific exercises targeting those areas. And that's just a myth. You can't target certain areas of your body and just burn or target the fat in those areas and lose the fat there. The only way to lose fat is through a caloric deficit when you're burning more calories than you're consuming and your fat is lowered overall throughout your whole body. And this is just a little bit of a problem that I see around social media, especially when you see like 6 ab exercises to lose belly fat or a 10-minute ab routine for a 6-pack. And although those exercises and those routines are good, and I think that you should still continue to do them to strengthen your core, the idea behind the title kind of makes people think that through ab exercises alone, you can lose belly fat and get a 6-pack. And I can see how people really believe it because you're doing those ab exercises, you're feeling a ton of burn, especially in the lower abs or wherever in the abs, and you think that that burning sensation is the fat being burned off, but it doesn't work that way. There have been countless studies disproving this, which I'll all put in the description if you guys want to read. But I think the best way to go about this is teaching you what actually goes on in your body, how your body works, and how your body loses fat. When you're eating in a caloric surplus, you're eating more calories than you're burning every single day. Your body's gonna take those extra calories and store them on your body for later use in the form of triglycerides, in the form of fat. Your body stores fat on your body because later on when you're in a caloric deficit and your body needs energy, it can break down those triglycerides, the stored fat on your body, into free fatty acids and glycerol, and it enters into your bloodstream and your body can use that anywhere else in the body for energy. So the fat is kind of broken down everywhere. It enters into your bloodstream and it's used for energy kind of everywhere. So when you're doing that core routine or you're doing those tough ab exercises, you're strengthening up that area, but you're not directly burning the fat from your abs. And honestly, if you're not even in a caloric deficit, if you're in a caloric maintenance or a caloric surplus, you're not even breaking down fat at all. I'm gonna write this in bold, but fat loss comes from a caloric deficit, or when you are burning more calories than you're consuming. So my advice for you, if you want to lose fat in those stubborn areas, whether that's in your stomach, your legs, or wherever you store fat, focus on getting into a caloric deficit and focus on decreasing the fat on your body as a whole. Don't stop the ab routines, don't stop those core exercises, they're still good for you, but don't view them in the way that that's creating a 6-pack for you or that's burning the fat on your stomach. All it's doing is strengthening up your core, strengthening up those ab muscles. The second myth that I want to break down is that eating after 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. or eating at night causes people to gain weight. Now, meal timing and meal frequency is a very interesting topic, and I'm sure you guys have heard a ton of different things about meal timing, meal frequency, about how you should have 5 meals a day, how you shouldn't eat after 5 p.m., how you should consume protein right after your workout, and it's a very complex topic. But the specific thing I want to dive into is about how eating after a certain time or late at night is any worse for you than it is to eat any other time during the day. And as usual, there is a reason why this myth came to be. There is some truth behind it. The first kind of truth behind this myth is that it's generally not good to have a big meal right before you go lie down and go to bed. Doing that can kind of lead to some problems with your digestive system, including indigestion, heartburn, acid reflux, stuff like that. But it's not going to lead to weight gain, any more weight gain than it would if you eat that meal any other time during the day. And the second thing why there's probably some truth to this is that there were some studies done on mice, and they looked at them as mice ate meals against their circadian rhythm. So they basically ate meals when they were supposed to be sleeping. And they found that 2 different mice could eat the same amount, but if one ate during the time that they were supposed to be asleep, they would gain more weight, even if they ate the same number of calories. which is really weird. However, when we're looking at studies performed on humans, we find that that's not the case. And the majority of studies point to the case that a calorie is a calorie regardless when during the day or the night that you eat it. If you eat a banana for breakfast, it's gonna have the same nutritional content, the same calories as if you eat it right before you go to bed. The calories don't change. Here's the theme of the video right here. People gain weight when they're in a caloric surplus, or they're consuming more calories than they're burning every single day. And people lose weight if they're in a caloric deficit, or they're burning more calories than they're consuming every single day. That's the takeaway. So as far as my advice for this topic, I wouldn't recommend having a huge meal right before you go to bed, just in case of some digestive issues. But in terms of that late meal causing weight gain, don't worry about that. Don't stress about that. Focus on the total number of calories that you're consuming and the macronutrient breakdown of the calories that you're eating. Okay. Myth number 3 is a big one, and I'm sure it's going to be a little controversial, but the myth is that blank is bad for you. Carbs are bad for you. Fat is bad for you. Red meat is bad for you. Salt is bad for you. Bread is bad for you. Egg yolks are bad for you. The media, magazines, YouTube videos, whatever, they love to point the blame at one specific food group or macronutrient or whatever to put all the blame on because it's a very good title and it's interesting. And you can see why. If you read a title that says like bread is bad for you, carbs are bad for you, or cut out bread and you'll lose 10 pounds, you want to click on it because it's so easy just to cut out one thing from your diet and lose 10 pounds. But there's a cycle. Every 5 to 10 years, a new food group comes up or a new diet comes up or a new fad comes up that points the blame at one group and tells you to eliminate that to be healthy. When it comes to nutrition, it's very rare that you're dealing in absolutes. Never eat this or always eat this. It's usually have a well-balanced diet, eat everything in moderation, and tailor the diet to your needs. And again, it's so hard, it's so difficult because usually these titles or these themes or these fad diets usually stem from a little bit of truth. And there's a study or two or a research topic or something that comes out that points maybe how an overconsumption of these items can lead to certain diseases. But with moderate consumption, with a well-balanced diet and exercise, usually the risk is very, very low. So what I'll do is I'll briefly go over some of these foods or food groups and we'll talk about the safety of each product. The first food group that I'm sure you guys have heard to cut out is carbs. This is the hot topic right now. Everybody's talking about the keto diet, cutting out carbs or severely limiting carbs and doing a high protein, high fat diet. And as usual, there definitely is some truth behind the keto diet. It is 100% true that some form of carbs should be cut out from your diet or limited as much as possible. And those are the really highly processed, refined carbohydrates such as candy, soda, cookies, pastries, etc. And it is very true that our bodies can go without carbohydrates because our bodies are very adaptive and they can convert protein and fat for energy to use by our bodies. Cutting out an entire macronutrient from your diet or severely limiting it in your diet can actually stem more problems than it solves. Cutting out carbs can mean cutting out majority of fruits, vegetables, and legumes. Significantly reducing carbohydrates over the long term can lead to a lot of different health issues from not getting these nutrients. Now again, I do think it's smart to limit some form of carbohydrates like I mentioned, but anytime a diet or nutrition plan tells you to cut out an entire macronutrient or severely limit it, especially as an athlete, you have to consider the negative side effects that might come from that. Now, completely changing gears, people have even said that you should limit or completely cut out fat from your diet and that fat is the problem. Maybe some of you guys are too young to remember, but people seem to forget about 10, 15 years ago, people were telling everybody to be healthy, you need to reduce or cut out fat from your diet and stick to a high carbohydrate, high protein diet in order to be healthy. This was the low fat diet. And while low fat diets aren't inherently unhealthy, much like how a keto diet isn't inherently unhealthy, anytime you're cutting out a macronutrient from your nutrition plan or severely limiting it, it can come with some negative side effects. Shunning all fat from your diet can be dangerous in the same exact way as shunning all carbohydrates from your diet. When we're talking about fat, your body needs omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in order to sustain itself. If you're not consuming enough of those over the long term, it can come with some very serious issues. With more and more research coming out, it just goes to show that they're macronutrients. They're needed by the body in large amounts. You need to have carbs, you need to have fats, you need to have proteins. And having that well-balanced diet helps you get different vitamins and minerals to help sustain your body, to help sustain life. In nutrition, it is very rare to deal with absolutes. This is always good for you no matter what. This is always bad for you no matter what. That's very rare. Another very hot topic right now is red meat. There's been some documentaries documentaries, there's been a lot of athletes, there's been some people to say that no matter what, red meat is bad for you, it causes cancer, you need to cut it out of your diet in order to be healthy. And again, there is some truth behind this. Some compounds such as polyaromatic hydrocarbons or PHSs, which are found in smoked meats, have been found to damage the genome. And damaging the genome is the first step in causing cancer. Current evidence suggests that processed red meats, particularly those that are charred during the cooking process, can pose a greater cancer risk for those with poor diet and exercise habits. But if you eat red meat in moderation, you continue to exercise, you eat your fruits and veggies and your whole grains and your fiber, you don't smoke and you only drink in moderation, then red meat's effect on cancer isn't something to worry too much about. And again, having said that, if you want to limit your red meat intake for environmental reasons, for moral reasons, or for other reasons, then go for it. But I just don't like seeing misconceptions thrown out there and people thinking that they're inherently unhealthy for eating red meat. So now let's talk about salt. I'm sure you've heard that in order to be healthy, you need to limit your salt intake. And again, there's lots of truth behind it. The typical American diet is way too high in sodium already. And some studies have shown that too much salt can lead to hypertension, kidney damage, and cognitive decline. But it's wrong to think of salt as bad for you, especially if you're an athlete. If you're sweating a lot, you're gonna need more salt than the average person. And salt in itself is an essential mineral. We need to consume it in order to have our body function properly, especially if you're exercising. The problem arises when you consume too much salt and not enough potassium, or you're consuming too much salt and you're not sweating. And salt reduction is very important for people with salt-sensitive hypertension, but for the majority of people, especially for footballers that are sweating a lot, you need to be consuming salt. And interestingly enough, in clinical trials, it's been shown that a drastic decrease in salt has not been linked to health benefits. So as for my advice for footballers, when it comes to salt, usually you're getting enough salt as an American, especially with a typical American or European diet. But if you're exercising a lot, you're sweating a ton, you will need to have a lot of salt. The key lies in consuming the right amount of salt. The next topic I want to talk about is bread. I'm sure you've heard that in order to be healthy, you need to cut out bread from your diet. Bread is not bad for you. The problem with bread is that it's very calorically dense and it's very easy to overeat. And usually when people eat bread, which is already high in calories in itself, they usually eat it with honey, jam, peanut butter, etc., which is a very calorically dense food as well. So it's a very, very high calorie meal that you're consuming that doesn't fill you up that much. And continually doing that can put your body in a caloric surplus, which, as we know, leads to weight gain. So when it comes to bread can definitely be eaten in moderation and can definitely be included into a very healthy diet if you love bread, but just watch it when it comes to calories because it's very easy to overeat and lead to weight gain. So as long as you're not gluten intolerant or celiac disease or you are wheat sensitive or something like that, it's perfectly fine for you to include bread into your diet. The last one again is a big one, and I'm sure you guys have seen this in my videos, but it's eggs. And again, there is some truth behind it because foods high in cholesterol can lead to an increase in LDL cholesterol in most people, but that increase is very, very small. But very interestingly, when it comes to eggs, some micronutrients and some bioactive compounds found in egg yolks could interfere with the cholesterol absorption, and many studies have failed to find an increase in cholesterol in egg eaters. And there's been tons of clinical trials to show that a consumption of eggs does not lead to cardiovascular disease. Now, for getting technical, yes, there are some people that are known as hyper responders to dietary cholesterol, and consuming cholesterol for these people will lead to a spike in their cholesterol. But for majority of people out there, consuming eggs even every day has not been shown to have a significant increase in cardiovascular disease or LDL cholesterol. Eggs are a fantastic source of protein, fats, and other nutrients, and again, their cholesterol and their effects on your health has been severely overblown. So this was a huge topic. It was a huge myth, and you can go so in depth and really break down these studies and everything. But overall, when it comes to my advice, just be wary if any person or diet or whatever is telling you to completely shun or cut out an entire macronutrient or food group from your diet. For the most part, most foods can be included into a well-balanced diet perfectly fine, and most people have a wrong misconception when it comes to unhealthy and healthy foods. The last myth I want to talk about is surrounding organic food. Many people think that the organic option is always healthier for you. And it makes sense when you hear the word organic, you're thinking of fresh, clean, and just healthy. And although this is a very, very new topic and new studies and new information is constantly coming out, the few studies that have already been done around organic food have failed to find that the organic food option is inherently healthier than the non-organic food option. It doesn't mean that some organic foods are healthier than non-organic foods, but it's complex. And in some cases, choosing the organic food might just come with a new set of risks and a new set of health issues. And unfortunately, when it comes to organic versus non-organic, it really is kind of like trading one risk for another risk. For instance, a 2018 2018 test on different types of protein powders revealed that the organic ones had about half the levels of BPA, an industrial chemical, but had twice the amount of heavy metals. And there's this idea out there that if it's organic, it means that no synthetic material can ever be used to process it, or there can't be any pesticides, but that really isn't the case. The national list of allowed and prohibited substances actually makes some exceptions when it comes to organic foods and some synthetic products. And yes, some organic fruit does have less synthetic pesticide residue on it than conventional items, but natural, fully organic pesticides do exist and they're used, and sometimes they're not any more healthy than the synthetic version, nor are they any better for the environment. So as far as my advice when it comes to organic foods, do your own research, especially with more and more information coming out over the next few years, but don't always assume that the organic option is the healthier option and it doesn't come with any risks. And unfortunately, it's not a black or white topic. I can't just sit here and say, this is the healthy option, this is not the healthy option. I wish I could. It would be so much easier to tell you guys to make a YouTube video, but unfortunately, organic foods and the entire topic of nutrition is very complicated. Okay guys, this was a very dense video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned something. If any of these topics really stood out to you or you learned something, let me know in the comment section below. And as always do your own research. Always talk to your own doctors. Always talk or seek out a registered dietitian. Do some blood work, and don't ever just take my word for it. And again, as I learned when I was getting my certification, this is a very fluid topic and it's sure to change over time with new scientific studies coming out. So be open-minded, do your research, and make the best decision for yourself. All right guys, peace.